"Come on, Adrian," he'd said over coffee that morning. Those green eyes doing that thing they did, sparkling with mischief, and something else I'd trained myself not to notice. You can't hide in your apartment forever, writing sad poetry that no one reads. "Hey," I'd protested, stirring my latte with more force than necessary. 17 people read my last piece. Thank you very much. Your mom doesn't count as 17 people? I'd thrown my napkin at him, and he'd laughed that full-bodied, uninhibited laugh that made something in my chest simultaneously sore and ache. That was our dynamic. Best friends since sophomore year of college, both 28 and navigating the messy terrain of late 20s in Chicago. Him, a marketing executive with an effortless smile and a wardrobe that suggested he actually understood what business casual meant. Me, a struggling poet and reluctant copywriter who still wore band t-shirts from college and considered showering before noon an achievement. We were different in every way that mattered, and yet somehow we fit, or at least I'd convinced myself we did. Now, standing in the Whitmore Gallery with a glass of champagne I wasn't drinking, I watched Evan work the room. He was magnetic without trying, leaning in to listen to a silver-haired woman discuss color theory, nodding thoughtfully, making her feel like she was the most interesting person in the world. It was his superpower, really. Making people feel seen, I wondered, not for the first time. If he'd ever really seen me, "You're doing it again," I startled. Turning to find Melissa Chang beside me, Evan's colleague, and the third member of our little trio. She wore a knowing smirk and a dress that actually suited the occasion, unlike my slightly wrinkled button-down and jeans. "Doing what?" I asked, aiming for innocent. The brooding poet thing. The watching Evan from across the room with sad, longing eyes thing. She took a sip of her wine, her expression softening. "Adrian, you know I love you both, but this is getting painful to watch." My throat tightened. "I don't know what you're talking about, honey." Her hand found my arm, gentle but firm. "You've been in love with him since junior year. Everyone knows except him. And maybe you, on days you're feeling particularly committed to denial." The words landed like stones in still water, sending ripples through the careful construction I'd built around my feelings. Junior year. God, had it really been that long? I remembered the moment it had shifted for me. We'd been studying for finals, sprawled across his dorm room floor at 3 a.m, delirious, with exhaustion and too much coffee. He'd been reading Whitman aloud, we two boys together, clinging his voice soft in the lamplight. Something in me had cracked open. The realization had been gentle and devastating all at once. I was in love with my best friend, and I could never, ever tell him. "Melissa," I started, but she cut me off. I'm not saying you should tell him. I know it's complicated. She sighed. "I hate watching you hurt yourself like this. You deserve someone who looks at you the way you look at him." Before I could respond, Evan materialized beside us, slightly flushed from the warmth of the gallery and social exertion. "What are we talking about?" "You both look way too serious for an art show." "Adrian's poetry," Melissa said smoothly. "I was just telling him he needs to submit to more journals. Stop hiding his light under a bushel." Evan's face lit up. "Yes, that's what I keep saying. Adrian, your work is incredible. You just need more confidence." His hand landed on my shoulder. Casual and warm, and I fought the urge to lean into it. To let myself imagine for just a moment that the touch meant something more than friendly encouragement. "Maybe," I managed. "We'll see." The rest of the evening passed in a blur of polite conversation and artistic pretension. I found myself drifting through the gallery, studying paintings I didn't understand, trying to quiet the noise in my head. Melissa's words had unsettled something in me, shaken loose a truth I'd worked hard to bury. 7 years of friendship. 7 years of careful navigation, of learning to love him at a distance, of accepting that his friendship, his presence in my life was enough. It had to be enough. Because the alternative was losing him entirely, and I couldn't survive that. "There you are." Evan's voice pulled me from my thoughts. I was standing in front of a massive canvas swirls of midnight blue and silver that somehow conveyed both chaos and peace. "Sorry," I said. "Got lost in thought." He studied me for a moment, his expression unreadable. "You've been quiet tonight." Everything okay? Yeah, just, you know? Crowds aren't really my thing, I know. He moved closer, and I caught his scent, something clean and cedar-like that I'd forever associate with safety and longing. Thanks for coming anyway. It means a lot, of course. That's what friends do, right? The word friends felt like swallowing glass, but I kept my voice steady, right? Something flickered across his face, too quick to interpret. Then he smiled, and the moment passed. Hey, a few of us are going to grab late-night food after this. You in? I should have said no. Should have gone home, put distance between myself and this ache in my chest. But I was weak, and he was Evan, and I would take whatever pieces of him I could get. Yeah, I said. I'm in. The diner was a 24-hour institution called Nicky's. All cracked vinyl booths and fluorescent lighting that made everyone look slightly ill. But it served pancakes at midnight and didn't judge. Which made it perfect. Our group had whittled down to 4. Me, Evan, Melissa, and her boyfriend James, who worked in finance and was nice enough but talked too much about cryptocurrency. We'd claimed a corner booth, and now we were 3 orders of fries and 2 milkshakes deep into the kind of rambling conversation that only happens after midnight. I'm just saying, James was pontificating. The traditional markers of success are outdated. Marriage, kids, white picket fence, that's not everyone's dream anymore. Thank God for that, Melissa said, stealing one of his fries. Can you imagine me with a white picket fence? You'd paint it black within a week, Evan laughed. Exactly. I watched them banter, feeling oddly disconnected. The gallery opening had unsettled me more than I wanted to admit. Melissa's words kept echoing. You deserve someone who looks at you the way you look at him. But what if the way I looked at him was the problem? What if I'd spent so long pining for something impossible that I'd forgotten how to want anything else? Adrian. Evan's voice cut through my spiral. You okay? You've been in your head all night?
Ow.
4 pairs of eyes turned to me. I forced a smile. Yeah, sorry. Just tired. He's working on a new poem, Melissa offered, throwing me a lifeline. The brooding artist needs his processing time. Can we hear it? James asked with the enthusiasm of someone who'd never actually read poetry. It's not finished, I said quickly. Adrian never thinks anything is finished, Evan said. But there was affection in his voice. He's a perfectionist. I've been begging to read his new collection for months. It's not ready. It'll never be ready if you keep hiding it. Evan's expression turned serious. You're talented, Adrian. I wish you could see what I see when I read your work. The words were kind, supportive, everything a best friend should be. So why did they feel like a knife between my ribs? Because they were about my poetry. About my talent. About everything except the thing I actually wanted him to see. Me. Not as his funny, creative friend who needed encouragement, but as someone who could be worthy of his love. Thanks, I managed. That means a lot. James's phone buzzed, and he glanced at it with a grimace. Ugh, work emergency. I need to take this. Mel, you ready to head out? Melissa shot me an apologetic look. Yeah, we should go. Early meeting tomorrow. She stood, gathering her purse. Adrian, we need to do coffee soon. Just us. Okay. The emphasis on just us was deliberate. She wanted to talk more about what she'd said at the gallery, and part of me was grateful while another part dreaded it.
Oh, sure.
I said. Text me. They left in a flurry of goodbyes and jacket grabbing. Suddenly it was just Evan and me in the booth, the diner mostly empty around us. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead. A tired waitress refilled coffee cups for the only other patrons, an elderly couple 2 booths over. It's so, Evan said, spinning his water glass between his palms. Want to tell me what's really going on? Nothing's going on, Adrian. He said my name like a gentle reprimand. I've known you for 7 years. I can tell when something's bothering you. 7 years. The number felt weighted, full of history and secrets, and all the moments I'd bitten back the truth. It's nothing, I insisted. Just, I don't know. Existential stuff. Quarter-life crisis number 3. Try me. I looked at him, then really looked. At the concern in his green eyes, the slight furrow between his brows, the way he leaned forward like whatever I was about to say was the most important thing in the world. This was Evan at his core, someone who genuinely cared, who wanted to fix things, who hated seeing people he loved in pain. And God, I loved him for it, which was exactly the problem. You ever feel like you're living half a life? The words came out before I could stop them. Like you're going through the motions, checking boxes, but missing something fundamental. Evan was quiet for a moment. Yeah, he said finally. Actually, I do. So that surprised me. Really? Really? He ran a hand through his dark hair, a nervous habit I'd catalogued along with 100 others. I mean, from the outside, everything looks good, right? Good job, good friends, nice apartment. But sometimes I feel like I'm performing, like I'm playing the role everyone expects, but underneath. He trailed off, shaking his head. Underneath. I prompted, my heart suddenly beating faster. Underneath, I wonder if people actually know me. The real me. His eyes met mine, and there was something vulnerable in them, something raw. Do you ever feel like that? Like you're hiding the most important parts of yourself because you're afraid of what might happen if people saw them. The question hung between us, loaded with meanings I couldn't quite parse. Was he talking about something specific? Or just the universal human experience of feeling unknown? Yeah, I said quietly. I feel like that all the time, but not with me, right? He reached across the table, his hand covering mine. The touch sent electricity up my arm. Adrian, you know you can tell me anything? There's nothing you could say that would change how I feel about you. The irony was almost funny. There's nothing you could say except the one thing I could never say. Except, I'm in love with you. I have been for years. You're the reason I write poetry about longing and distance and beautiful things I can't have. I know I lied. Same goes for you. You know that, right? His hand squeezed mine once before releasing. Yeah, I know. The moment passed, but something had shifted. A tension I couldn't name had entered the space between us, something that felt both dangerous and inevitable. We left the diner around 2 a.m., stepping out into the cool October night. Chicago was quiet at this hour, the city's constant hum reduced to a whisper. We walked toward the L station, neither of us in a hurry, despite the late hour. Thanks for coming tonight, Evan said as we reached the platform. I know art galleries aren't your scene. It wasn't so bad. I shoved my hands in my pockets, searching for something to say that felt true without being too true. Besides, you'd do the same for me, in a heartbeat. The train pulled up, mostly empty. We found seats near the back, and as the city blurred past the windows, I felt Evan's presence beside me like heat, like gravity, like something I couldn't resist, even if I tried. Adrian. Yeah, that thing you said. About living half a life? He turned to look at me, his expression serious in the dim train light. You're not, you know, living half a life. You're one of the most fully alive people I know. You feel things deeply. You see beauty everywhere. You make the world make sense through your words. He paused. I hope you know how rare that is. How rare you are. The words were too much and not enough. They were everything I wanted to hear and nothing close to what I needed. Thanks, I whispered, not trusting my voice. We rode the rest of the way in comfortable silence, but my mind was racing. Something had changed tonight, subtle, almost imperceptible, but definitely there. A crack in the foundation we'd built, letting light in, or maybe letting the truth out. When we parted ways at my stop, Evan pulled me into a hug normal for us, but tonight it felt different, tighter, longer, like he was holding on to something he was afraid to lose. See you Saturday? He asked, pulling back. We had standing weekend plans, coffee, and whatever adventure struck our fancy. Yeah, I said. Saturday. I watched him ride away, and as the train disappeared into the tunnel, I let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. Melissa was right. This was getting painful to watch, but what she didn't understand was that the pain was the price of keeping him in my life, and I would pay it gladly, over and over, for as long as he'd let me, even if it killed me, even if it already was. Saturday. Golden leaves, crisp air, the kind of sunshine that felt like a blessing, After months of humid summer, Evan texted at 9 a.m. Coffee at the usual place? I need to talk to you about something. My stomach dropped. I need to talk to you about something was never good. It meant something had changed, shifted, was about to be revealed. I stared at my phone, typing and deleting responses before finally settling on, sure, 10:30. Perfect. See you soon. I spent the next 90 minutes spiraling through possibilities. Maybe he'd met someone. Maybe he was moving for work. Maybe he'd somehow figured out how I felt and was about to gently, kindly, devastatingly let me down. By the time I arrived at CAF, Luminosa wore spot for 5 years running, I'd worked myself into a state of quiet panic. Evan was already there, sitting at our usual table by the window. But something was different. He looked nervous. His leg bounced under the table, and he kept running his hands through his hair that Tell I knew so well, I said. Sliding into the seat across from him, "Hey," he smiled, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. "Thanks for meeting me, of course. What's going on? You're freaking me out a little," he laughed, but it sounded strained. "Yeah, sorry. God, this is harder than I thought it would be." My heart was hammering now. "Evan, whatever it is, just tell me. You're scaring me." He took a deep breath, meeting my eyes. "I'm not going to the company retreat next month. Of all the things I'd been expecting, that wasn't one of them." "Okay, why not?" "Because I realized something. Actually, I've known it for a while, but I've been too afraid to admit it. Too afraid of what it might mean." He was talking faster now, words tumbling out. "You know how we talked the other night about hiding parts of yourself? About feeling like you're performing? Yeah, I've been doing that. For years. Especially at work. But also pretending to be someone I'm not. Or maybe not pretending exactly, but not being fully honest about who I am." Understanding began to dawn, slow and cautious. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying." He closed his eyes briefly, then opened them with something like resolve. "I'm saying I'm not straight, Adrian. I think I'm gay. Or bi. I'm still figuring it out. But I know I'm not what everyone assumes I am." The world tilted. Time did that strange thing where it seemed to slow down and speed up simultaneously. I could hear every sound in the cafe with crystal clarity, the hiss of the espresso machine, the murmur of conversation, the clink of cups on saucers. But I also felt like I was moving through honey, every thought taking an eternity to form. "Oh," I managed. "Yeah," he laughed shakily. "Oh, how long have you known?" "Consciously? Maybe 6 months. But if I'm honest, probably a lot longer than that. I was really good at not thinking about it. At telling myself it was just confusion, or that everyone felt that way sometimes, or whatever excuse I could find." He twisted his coffee cup between his hands. "But lately I can't ignore it anymore. And I don't want to. I'm tired of hiding." Pride and pain warred in my chest. Pride that he trusted me with this, that he'd found the courage to speak this truth. Pain because now everything was different, and I didn't know what that meant. "Thank you for telling me," I said carefully. "I know that took a lot of courage. You're one of the first people I've told. Actually, you're the first person I've told who isn't a therapist." He looked at me with such open vulnerability that it hurt. "I needed you to know. Your opinion matters more to me than anyone else's. Evan, I'm honored that you trust me with this. And for what it's worth, this doesn't change anything about how I see you. You're still the same person. You're still my best friend." Relief flooded his features. Yeah. I reached across the table, taking his hand. "I'm proud of you. This is huge. It feels huge. It feels terrifying and liberating at the same time." He squeezed my hand. "I haven't told my parents yet, or anyone at work. I'm still figuring out how to navigate all of that. But I wanted you to know first." We talked for another hour about his journey, his fears, what this meant for his future. I listened, offered support, tried to be the friend he needed in that moment. But underneath it all, a storm was brewing in my chest. Because Evan was queer. Evan, who I'd loved from a careful distance because I'd believed it was impossible. Evan, who I'd resigned myself to wanting, but never having. And now? Now everything was different, and I had no idea what to do about it. The rest of the day passed in a blur. We walked along the lake shore, grabbed lunch at a Thai place we loved, talked about everything and nothing. On the surface, it was like any other Saturday. But underneath, I was reeling around 7 p.m. As the sun began to set over the water, Evan turned to me with that slightly mischievous smile I knew meant trouble. "I have a proposition. I'm listening. Come over tonight. Let's order pizza, drink wine, watch terrible movies. Like old times." He bumped my shoulder with his. I could use the distraction. And the company should have said no. Should have gone home to process, to think, to figure out what this new reality meant for us. But I was weak, and he was Evan, and I'd never been able to deny him anything. "Okay," I said. "But I get to pick the first movie. Deal." His apartment was quintessentially Evan clean lines, carefully curated art on the walls, a bookshelf that mixed literary fiction with graphic novels. I'd been here 1,000 times, but tonight it felt different. Charged with potential in a way that made my skin feel too tight, we ordered pizza, opened wine, settled onto his couch with a comfortable distance between us. I picked a sci-fi thriller I'd been wanting to see, and for a while, we fell into our familiar rhythm. Commentary on the movie, debates about plot holes, shared laughter at the corny dialogue. But as the night wore on and the wine flowed, something shifted. "Can I ask you something?" Evan said during a pause in the movie. "Always. Have you ever been in love?" The question caught me off guard. We'd talked about relationships before, but always in general terms. Never this directly? Why do you ask? Because I'm trying to figure out if I have been. If what I've felt in past relationships was actually love, or if I was just going through the motions, trying to feel what I thought I should feel. I took a sip of wine, buying time. I think love feels different for everyone. There's no one right way to experience it. But you didn't answer my question. Our eyes met. And I saw something in his expression, a kind of searching intensity that made my pulse quicken. "Yes," I said quietly. "I've been in love." "What was it like?" "Painful, beautiful, consuming." The words came easier than they should have, loosened by wine and exhaustion and the strange intimacy of the moment. Like every song was suddenly about them. Like colors were brighter and food tasted better, and the whole world had rearranged itself around this one person.
That sounds amazing.
It is. I caught myself. Hypothetically? Is it hypothetical? He shifted closer, and I could smell his cologne, that cedar scent that meant safety and danger all at once. "Are you in love with someone right now?" This was it. The moment where I could tell the truth or keep lying. Where I could risk everything or protect what we had. Evan. Because I think I might be. His voice was soft, almost wondering. "In love, I mean, and it's terrifying because I've spent so long not letting myself feel this. Not letting myself want what I actually want." My heart was a drumbeat, loud and insistent. "Who?" I whispered, though part of me was afraid to know. He looked at me, then really looked. And there was something in his eyes I'd never let myself see before. Something that looked a lot like longing. "I think you know," he said. The world narrowed to this. His face, his eyes, the space between us that suddenly felt charged with electricity. "I don't want to assume I managed, Adrian." He said my name like a prayer, like a confession. "It's you. It's been you for longer than I've let myself admit." Time stopped. Everything I'd wanted, everything I'd convinced myself was impossible, was suddenly real. He was looking at me like I was something precious, something he'd been searching for. "I don't understand," I said, because I needed to hear him say it clearly. Needed to know this wasn't wine or wishful thinking or a beautiful dream I'd wake from. "I'm saying I have feelings for you. Romantic feelings. I'm saying that when I finally let myself be honest about who I am and what I want, you're what I want." He reached out, his hand cupping my face with infinite gentleness. "I'm saying I think I'm falling in love with my best friend. And I have no idea if you feel the same way, but I had to tell you." I couldn't keep hiding. Tears pricked my eyes. 7 years. 7 years of careful distance and swallowed words and loving him from the sidelines. Evan, I breathed. I've been in love with you since junior year of college. His eyes widened. What? You asked if I'd ever been in love? It was you. It's always been you. The words poured out now, unstoppable. I've spent 7 years trying not to love you, trying to be satisfied with your friendship because I thought that was all I could have. And now you're telling me? I couldn't finish. Couldn't find words big enough for what I was feeling. I'm telling you it's mutual, he said, and there were tears in his eyes too. I'm telling you I was an idiot for not seeing it sooner. I'm telling you that maybe the reason I couldn't figure out who I was is because I was too afraid to admit I wanted you. We stared at each other, the revelation hanging between us like something sacred. Can I kiss you? He whispered. I nodded, not trusting my voice. And then his lips were on mine. And the world caught fire. It started gentle, tentative, exploratory, like we were both afraid of breaking something precious. But then I pressed closer, my hand finding the back of his neck, and the kiss deepened. 7 years of longing poured into it, all the words I'd never said, all the feelings I'd locked away. He tasted like wine and possibility. His hands were in my hair, on my face, pulling me closer, like he couldn't get enough. I'd imagined this moment 1,000 times, but the reality was so much more than any fantasy. It was messy and perfect and real. When we finally broke apart, we were both breathing hard, foreheads pressed together. Oh my God, Evan said, laughing shakily. Why did we wait so long to do that? Because I thought you were straight, and you thought you were straight, I pointed out. Fair. He kissed me again, softer this time. I wasted so much time. We both did. But we're here now. We're here now, he echoed, and the smile on his face was pure joy. We kissed again and again, making up for lost time. Eventually, we migrated to his bedroom, not for anything more than holding each other, learning the new language of us. We lay tangled together, trading kisses and whispered confessions, and I felt more whole than I had in years. What happens now? I asked as dawn began to lighten the sky outside his window. I don't know, Evan admitted. This is all new for me. Coming out, dating a guy, figuring out who I am, it might be messy. I can do messy. Yeah. Yeah, I kissed his shoulder. I've waited 7 years for this. I'm not going anywhere. He pulled me closer. Neither am I. That's a promise. As I drifted toward sleep in his arms, I thought about Melissa's words. You deserve someone who looks at you the way you look at him. Finally. Miraculously, I had it. Finally, he was looking. Boss sunlight streamed through Evan's bedroom window, painting golden stripes across the sheets. I woke to find him already awake, watching me with an expression so tender it made my chest ache. Morning, he said softly. Morning. I smiled, still half convinced this was a dream. How long have you been awake? A while. I was afraid if I fell back asleep I'd wake up and this would all have been in my head. He reached out, tracing my jaw with gentle fingers. But you're real. This is real. Very real. I caught his hand, pressing a kiss to his palm. No, take-backs now. Wouldn't dream of it. We stayed like that for a while, just existing in this new reality. Learning the simple intimacy of being together. Eventually, hunger drove us to the kitchen, where Evan made coffee, and I attempted to scramble eggs, while he kept distracting me with kisses. We're going to starve if you keep doing that, I protested, laughing as he nuzzled my neck. Worth it. It felt surreal, this easy domesticity. We'd cooked together hundreds of times, but never like this. Never with his arms around my waist. Never pausing to kiss between tasks. Never with the freedom to touch and be touched. Over breakfast. Reality began to creep in. So, Evan said, circling his coffee mug with both hands, we should probably talk about how we want to handle this. Handle what? Us. Yeah, I mean, we're in kind of a unique situation. Everyone knows us as best friends, and I'm still figuring out the whole coming out thing. He looked nervous. I'm not saying I want to hide us. I don't. But I also need to do this at my own pace, you know? I did know. Coming out was deeply personal, and I'd never pressure him to move faster than he was comfortable with. I get it, I said. We go at your speed. Whatever you need. Relief flooded his features. Thank you. My parents are pretty traditional. And work is going to be complicated. I need to figure out how to navigate all of that. We'll figure it out together. Together. He smiled like the word was a revelation. I like the sound of that. The first week was its own kind of beautiful chaos. We couldn't keep our hands off each other. 7 years of pent-up. Longing manifesting in stolen kisses and tangled limbs, and discovering all the ways we fit together. We'd meet for lunch and end up making out in my car like teenagers. He'd come over to watch a movie, and we'd barely make it through the opening credits. Before we were kissing on my couch, it was intoxicating and overwhelming and everything I'd dreamed of. But it was also complicated. Melissa was the first person we told. I'd asked Evan if I could confide in her. She'd already known how I felt. After a land, he'd agreed. She'd screamed over FaceTime, making us both wince. I knew something was going to happen. Oh my God, you guys, I'm so happy for you. Her joy was infectious, and it felt good to have someone to share this with. Someone who understood what it meant. But beyond Melissa, we kept quiet. Evan wasn't ready to tell his coworkers or family, and I respected that. We'd been best friends for so long that no one questioned us hanging out constantly. In public, we were careful, no hand-holding, no obvious affection. It was only in private that we could be fully ourselves. Is this okay? Evan asked one night after we'd had dinner with mutual friends and spent the whole evening maintaining careful distance. We were back at his apartment, and the question was loaded with uncertainty. Is what okay? This hiding. I don't want you to feel like I'm ashamed of us. I pulled him close, threading my fingers through his hair. I don't feel that way. I know you're not ashamed. You're just figuring things out. That's allowed. But you've been out since college. You don't have to hide who you are. And now you're with someone who's asking you to keep it quiet. At least for now, continue to 57 a.m. That's not fair to you. Evan, I made him look at me. I chose this. I chose you. And yes, I'd love to hold your hand in public or kiss you goodbye in front of other people. But I'd rather have you like this than not have you at all. We'll get there. In the meantime, this is enough. You're sure? I'm sure. He kissed me then, deep and grateful, and I poured all my certainty into it. Because it was true, I would wait as long as he needed. 7 years had taught me patience. 3 weeks in, Evan told his parents, it didn't go well. He showed up at my apartment at 11 p.m. on a Tuesday. Eyes red-rimmed, looking shattered. I pulled him inside without a word, and he collapsed onto my couch, burying his face in his hands. They didn't take it well, he said, voice muffled. I sat beside him, a hand on his back. Do you want to talk about it? My dad. God, Adrian, the things he said. He looked up, and my heart broke at the pain in his eyes. He said I was confused, that this was a phase, that I'd been corrupted by liberal influence or some bullshit like that. My mom just cried and asked where they went wrong. Rage and helplessness warred in my chest. I wanted to protect him from this, to fix it. But I knew I couldn't. All I could do was be here. I'm so sorry, I said. Pulling him into my arms, he clung to me, and I felt wetness against my neck tears he'd been holding back. The worst part is, my dad asked if there was someone specific. If I'd been led astray, and I couldn't tell them about you, couldn't say that the person I'm falling in love with is the same person they've met a dozen times. The same person they told me was a good friend to have. That's okay. You don't owe them information you're not ready to share, but I want to share it. I want to tell the world that I'm with you, that you make me happier than I've ever been. He pulled back, wiping his eyes. I'm tired of hiding, Adrian. I'm tired of pretending. So don't, I said gently. Don't pretend. Be exactly who you are, even if it costs me my family. Hopefully it won't come to that. Sometimes people need time to adjust. But if it does, I cupped his face, making sure he heard me. Then you build a new family. with people who love you for exactly who you are. You have Melissa. You have me. You have other friends who will support you. You're not alone in this. He kissed me then, desperate and grateful and full of need. We made love that night with a new intensity, like we were both trying to prove something, that this was real, that it was worth it, that we were worth it. Afterward, tangled in my sheets, Evan traced patterns on my chest. I love you, he said, quietly. I don't think I've said that yet. But I do. I love you. My breath caught. I love you too. So much it scares me sometimes. Good scared or bad scared? Good scared. The kind that makes you want to be better. To be brave? He smiled against my skin. You make me want to be brave too. 2 days later, Evan posted on social media. It was a simpler picture of us at the lakeshore. His arm around my shoulders, both of us smiling at the camera. The caption read, "Finally living my truth. This is Adrian. He's my boyfriend, my best friend, and the person who makes me believe in love. Proud to share this with all of you." My phone exploded with notifications. Messages from friends, likes, comments, overwhelmingly positive. Melissa sent approximately 40 heart emojis. Even some of Evan's coworkers reached out with support. But there were some negative responses too. Distant relatives with comments about sin and disappointment. A few former college friends unfriending him. His parents' continued silence was its own kind of message. Through it all, we held on to each other. No regrets? I asked that night as we read through comments together. None, he said firmly. This is who I am. This is who we are. Anyone who has a problem with that doesn't deserve space in my life. I kissed his temple. I'm proud of you. Yeah, you're the bravest person I know. 6 months later, we'd found our rhythm. Evan had started attending a support group for people navigating teen life coming out. He'd found a community there, others who understood the specific challenges of discovering your sexuality. After living years under heteronormative assumptions, his relationship with his parents was still strained. But they were trying. His mom had started texting occasionally. Nothing deep, just checking in. His dad remained distant, but Evan held out hope that time might soften his stance at work. Evan had come out to HR and his immediate team. The response had been mostly positive. He'd become an advocate for LGBTQ+ inclusion at his company. As for us, we were happier than I'd imagined possible. We'd moved in together 3 months into the relationship. Some might say it was fast, but we'd known each other for 7 years. In many ways, we'd been living a life together already. This just made it official now. Coming home meant finding him in our kitchen, cooking dinner while humming off key to whatever playlist he'd discovered. It meant late-night conversations that stretched into early morning, learning all the tiny details we'd missed as friends. It meant inside jokes and shared dreams and planning a future together. It meant love messy and real and absolutely worth every risk, Adrian. I looked up from my laptop. We were in our living room on a lazy Sunday afternoon, me, working on a new poetry collection, Evan reading beside me. Yeah. Do you remember that night? The night I told you everything? Of course, he set his book aside. I was thinking about how terrified I was. How sure I was that everything would fall apart if I told the truth. But it didn't. No, it didn't. It got better. Everything got better. He moved closer, taking my hand. I found myself, and I found you, or found you differently. And I keep thinking about all the time we wasted being afraid. I don't think it was wasted, I said thoughtfully. I think we both needed time to become people who could have this. Who could be brave enough for this? Maybe you're right. He smiled. Either way, I'm grateful. For all of it. Even the hard parts. Because they led here. To us. To us, he echoed. I closed my laptop, pulling him into my arms. 7 years ago, I'd fallen in love with my best friend. 7 years ago, I'd thought that love was something I'd carry in silence forever. But here we were, living together, building a life, loving each other openly and honestly. You know what the best part is? Evan said against my shoulder. What? We get to keep being best friends. We just get to add everything else on top of that. How many people can say they're in love with their best friend and actually mean it? I laughed, pulling back to kiss him. We're pretty lucky. The luckiest. As the afternoon sun streamed through our windows, I thought about that night, the night everything changed. The night we stopped hiding and started living. Melissa had been right. I deserved someone who looked at me the way I looked at them, and now, every day, Evan looked at me exactly that way. Like I was home. Like I was. His love was something simple and complicated and absolutely worth every moment of. Waiting the poetry reading was at a small bookstore in Wicker Park, the kind of intimate venue I'd once been too afraid to perform at. But that was before Evan, before finding my voice, before believing my words mattered. Now I stood at the microphone, Evan in the front row, and read from my newly published collection, What I Learned from Waiting. This last poem, I said to the small crowd. It's called That Night. It's about the moment everything changed. I found Evan's eyes, and he smiled that smile that still made my heart skip. That night. You said my name, I began, like you'd been saving it for years, holding it sacred on your tongue until the right moment arrived. That night, I learned that love is both the waiting and the worth, the question and the answer, the fear and the courage to name it. As I finished, the room erupted in applause. But I only cared about one person's reaction. Evan stood, pride and love written across his face, and I knew he'd been right. About all of it, that night had changed everything, and I still couldn't forget. I wouldn't want to, because it had led us here to love, the truth to each other, and that was worth remembering forever.